Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Karen.
I have my RMSEL jacket on again today. It's a perfect day for it.
Absolutely. So we're the live stream's running just because it takes a second to get going, just so everybody's informed and we're uh you looks like we have three, so one more and we can
Yep.
begin. Thanks for everybody for accommodating this. I know that we are all ready to get, or at least I am ready for everyone to get back into schools. The last few weeks have felt really good with hosting conferences with parents here in the building. That felt great on Thursday and Friday. We're ready to start intramural sports and enrichments here in a couple weeks to get clubs and activities back going for kids. Crew trips are set to go out, so starting to feel like school again, which is exciting. Looks like we have Michelle from Aurora and Brianna are both now in. So I will go ahead and start the recording. And we are live on the stream feed. So Carrie, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you to begin.
Great. Good morning. And thanks to everybody, as Chad mentioned, for accommodating our Zoom meeting. I know we had wanted to be in person, but with the weather and the temperatures, we thought this was a better option. So thank you all for doing that. We'll start, as we always do, with RMSEL BOCES meetings to introduce ourselves. My name is Carrie Olson, and I'm the representative from Denver Public Schools. And Angela, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, Angela Christensen, and I'm the representative from Littleton Public Schools.
Brianna, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Brianna Mestas. I'm the representative from PEBC, the Public Education and Business Coalition, and I have a little coworker here with me today.
I was going to say, you have to introduce your coworker.
This is Copal. She's very needy, and yes, she'll be on my lap today.
Perfect. That brings a nice flavor to it. Nichelle, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning. I'm Nichelle Ortiz, the representative from Aurora Public Schools.
And next on my screen, I see Becky.
Hi, Becky Myers, representative from Douglas County School District.
Great. Chad, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. Chad Burns, RMSEL.
And Julie?
Julie Stelzer, Finance Director for RMSEL.
And Chris?
I'm Chris Vedito, the Enrollment Coordinator at RMSEL.
Great. So this meeting is now in session and we are all called to order. So the first item we have on our agenda today is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda for February 22nd, 2022. Lots of twos today.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Hi.
Motion passes. Our agenda is approved. The next item on our agenda is to approve the minutes from the January 25th, 2022 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the January 25th meeting?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you. We'll now move on to our executive director report, and I'll turn it over to Chad.
Well, Angela beat me to the middle school joke of the morning with all the twos. So today will be a fun day around school. Today is 2/22/22. So I'm sure our math folks and friends will be having fun with that here at school. And just brings back fun times of being a middle school teacher. So you all have a copy of my executive director report, really focusing on the three kind of targets. The first big one, as you have all been having these same discussions within your respective school districts. I think one thing that is unique about this BOCES configuration is we are spread across 5 school districts and work with 3 health departments. So the Denver Department of Public Health and Environment, which is where we are geographically located. So they do take precedence over operational guidance with public health. And then we monitor Tri-County Health as well as the newly formed Douglas County Health Department and the guidance that they're issuing as well. Because we know that your families are receiving information from all 3 of these groups. We are trying to synthesize that for families here in Denver. So specifically in Denver, the executive director of DDPHE shared, Mr. Bob McDonald, that it is now safe for schools to return to closer to normal operation with the removal of the mask mandate in public schools operating in the city and county of Denver. This will take effect at midnight this Friday, February 25th, to go into effect for students on Monday. As you have seen throughout my communications over the past 2 years, our goal really with COVID has not been to be an extension of the health department, but to be an institution that follows the rules and the guidance as issued. We work with a diverse group of families here at RMSEL with a diverse group of values and opinions as related to COVID-19, how they are taking precautions within their home, how they believe those precautions should be taken within school. It's allowed us to safely operate throughout last year in a hybrid up to date to today. And we believe that it is now safe to implement this guidance at RMSEL. We will create an inclusive community for families who wish to continue to wear a mask while on campus, and we will value those decisions of families who elect to remove that mask. We will also extend that to our staff as well as our parent visitors. A couple unique pieces of this that I've pointed out in my report are threefold. One, the first being our school transportation with our mini buses, which we use for field work and for RMSEL adventure experiences, which will be coming up. Our high school trips will be going out in 2 weeks. We are still under the federal TSA mask requirement. So in our school RMSEL buses, we will be continuing to wear masks, and we will be continuing to wear masks in the event that we are in any other public transit situation. The second piece is the guidance as currently issued for the large number of COVID variants, which we now know is Omicron in our local community, and also applies to previous variants, which when we test, we don't know which variant we have. However, we're assuming it is the most recent variant. Students, staff, visitors, parents are required to isolate for a period of 5 days. Their first day being that after their onset day 0 of symptoms or of a positive test. At the conclusion of that 5 days, students, parents, staff may return to work, may return to school absent of a mask. However, absent of quarantine. However, you must wear a mask for 5 additional days. And we have N95 masks available here at school and would recommend that students or staff that may continue to be asymptomatic infectious wear those to keep a safe general community. And then the third aspect of this that we're going to seek some additional understanding on is in the city and county of Denver, school-based volunteers are considered unpaid employees of schools and therefore have been under the vaccine mandate requirement within the city and county of Denver to participate in volunteering within schools. We've seen a lot of reports that the dial is being moved around with vaccine requirements in public institution, OSHA weighing in on some federal legislation. So do want to reach out to the health department to get some clarification there, because currently we have about 75 or 70% of Coloradans in the city and county of Denver, 12 and older, that have received at least 2 doses of the vaccine or 1 dose of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So that does mean right now that 3 in 10 parents are unable to volunteer in school if they have elected not to receive that vaccine. So just want to weigh in, get our health department to weigh in on how they are interpreting that. because that order was issued in September, and to date, based on my findings within DDPHE's resources, that is still an effective health order. So it's kind of where we're at with COVID at school. We're excited to have families back in the building with conferences. We're excited to have exhibition nights that were postponed in January to be rescheduled in the next few weeks. We are excited to welcome shadow students into the building this week. Chris has done an amazing job to get those students in here in the last 2 weeks. We want to get them all through by Friday, so we are still operating under that public mandate with visitors here to campus, and then want to reach out just to get clarification to be respectful of our parent community, so that they can be inclusive in their children's schooling. So that's kind of where we're at with COVID updates. It's very exciting, feels very good to be through January, and I hope that that's the same shared sentiment within your school districts. Coulter reached out to council to share an extended timeline for the IGA. She's working with five district councils, different board meeting schedules that are happening right now, and she released this amended timeline a little over a week ago. She is expecting to receive all first round commentary today, and we'll get that back out to board members as well as council, hopefully by March 3rd. Between March 3rd and March 25th would be a second round of commentary to be received, to be presented at the April 19th meeting. Between the 19th and the 24th, once this board would approve those recommendations, it would go to your school boards for approval. That can be a discussed action item within your board meeting. It can be a consent agenda item based on the determination of your individual board operations. And then the new term of that would hopefully begin in July. Final piece here, we know we are in the next step of preparing for next school year, welcoming new kids and families, prospective families to RMSEL. And it's also a time where staff members are making decisions. We want to be competitive in hiring here at RMSEL, so we can reach out to job fairs. We're scheduled to be at the University of North Carolina or Northern Colorado. We're scheduled to be working with our partner districts. And one part of that here at RMSEL is we do put out a staff intent to hire letter. And we know that staffing in public schools has become very challenging. We know that this has been an extension of the national Great Resignation. We know the last 2 years of operations have been extremely challenging for individuals and their families, and educators are making alternative decisions. They're moving out of state. They're taking on new employment opportunities. They're also looking at staying home, being with their own families. And so we provide staff the opportunity to share their intent to return. And this year, based on where we're at with fiscal management and the ability to provide some additional resources. Pardon me?
I'm Ann with Cherry Creek Schools.
Hi, Ann.
I didn't get the word that this was remote, sorry.
Oh, guys, I'm going to invite a brief pause. We have a member from Cherry Creek here with us, and I'm going to grab a chair and invite her over real quick. So always being dynamic. I apologize.
Okay, no problem.
Have you been assigned to join us now, or is Angela?
Nope,
All right, great. Well, come on over.
That's great. And welcome.
Sorry, this is awkward. I should be.
That's
No,
okay.
It's all good. We commend you for making the drive. We'll add you to the email from now on, but it's good to see you, Ann. Good morning.
All right, nice to see you, Carrie.
Do you want to just introduce yourself, Ann, and then we'll keep
Hi,
going?
I'm Ann Egan. I would ideally be at home, but I'm here. And I have been on the Cherry Creek School Board this is my 3rd year, and I'm taking over for Angela. We rotate our spots every 2 years. So this is now my board allotment. So I'm pleased to meet everyone, and thank you.
Welcome.
It's a time after the meeting. Brief pause back to the report. Really excited that we were able to extend a $2,000 net retention stipend to our staff members who are electing to return for next year. This was really to support those individuals in making that final decision early so that we can be competitive in the hiring process for next year. So really thankful to be able to do that. Thankful to Julie to supporting me and getting that out to our staff members, which will pay out in their March paycheck. So we're really excited to have what we believe is a very clear number of staffing positions and openings for next year at this time. A lot of individual meetings took place over the last week with staff members with their intentions. Staff members at this point that are transitioning from RMSEL will be transitioning based on personal related decisions. We do not have anyone that's leaving to go to another metro school district at this time, seeking alternative employment. So I think we have a very satisfied group of employees here. Also, we'll note that the TLCC survey for the Colorado Department of Education and Teacher Satisfaction concluded on February 18th. So we hope that we got a 50% return rate of staff members. So we get results from that we can share with the board once Cambridge Education releases that. The final piece, as in all of your districts, as RMSEL is also a independent school district, we do have to complete the civil rights data collection, and 98% of that has been completed at this time. And so Chris is helping me finalize a few reports. They collect specific data in mathematics per class. And so we're having to pull down some ad hoc reports from Infinite Campus to get that finalized, but we will be in compliance with the CRDC report. So that's my executive director report at this time, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to board members for any clarification or questions.
Thank you so much, Chad, as always, for the detailed report, and I really appreciate getting it ahead of time so I can process it a bit. I'm wondering if Julie or Chris could forward to Anne the email with all the documents so she has them, so she can look at them as we're getting ready to go here. So that way you'll have them all. We get, and just so you know, we get a board packet in preparation for each meeting. So we'll make sure that you get that from here on out. So I'd like to open it up for any comments or discussions from any of my colleagues on the board.
And on your staff retention, you said you have at least 50% or you have 50% returning. Is that what I'm understanding, or do you have numbers?
We have numbers. It is significantly above 50%. The 50% is all of your districts get
the survey.
The survey from TLCC. And for that survey to produce results for your district, at least 50% of the surveys have to be completed.
Okay, I'm sorry, I tied those two things together. How many positions do you think that you will have open, or is that still kind of open-ended right now?
Let's see if Julie's going to beat me to it, or if I'm going to. Based on intent to returns, we have 3 open positions at this time.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Brianna.
Yeah, I just a couple of things I wanted to comment on the amount that you're offering folks for stating that they're going to return the $2,000. I think that's super effective. When I was teaching abroad, they had a very similar system set in place. And I just think it's always supportive, particularly for educators, to have extra financial incentives, especially in this economy in this time. So I appreciate that you're valuing educators in that way. The second thing I wanted to throw out is that the Teach Colorado representative also works for PEBC. Her name is Annette. She recently helped support a substitute boot camp. And I would like to connect you with her. One, to potentially have substitutes or highly qualified substitutes working at RMSEL, but potentially to also identify, again, highly qualified candidates that would be a good fit. So I'm saying this on record so I can follow up and introduce you to. She would be a great connection, and hopefully you'd be able to connect with some more educators in the Denver metro area.
And just for 22222 point of clarification, that was an extension for substitutes for RMSEL. That was not a shared invitation across all of our districts, because we all know how I saw that Mayor Hancock subbed in class last week, so I know that everybody is subbing right now. So just a quick plug. We would not have been able to do what we have done successfully this year without our group of parents who have become substitute certified and stepped into our classrooms, and just truly illuminates the strength of this community. We have a great sub pool that help us regularly, but we would have been at about a 50% reduction in substitute staffing without parents that decided to go through that certification. So thank you to parents out there that are watching. And also, if you're interested in subbing, it's a quick application process through CDE. You can substitute here at RMSEL, but I know that our partner districts would also take you as well.
I'd just like to echo my thanks to everybody who stepped up and become a guest teacher, a substitute teacher in classrooms. I've been doing that myself over the last couple months, and it is challenging. It's more challenging than being a classroom teacher, I think, because you don't have the relationship with the children. So a huge thank you to everybody. I know RMSEL is a tight family, and everybody steps up to make sure that all the students are taken care of. So yes, I echo the thanks, Chad. Thank you. And Brianna, that sounds wonderful. I'd love to learn more about the substitute boot camp. I promise I won't share it widely. So, anybody else, any questions or comments for Chad before we move on to open forum? I'd just like to take a moment, Chad, again to thank you for all of your detail in the COVID plans and the masking and the vaccines and everything. I feel as a board member that I've been very informed during this whole past 2-year process, and knowing how RMSEL is filtering through all the different guidance across the city and districts. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. All right, we'll move on to open forum. Do we have anyone for open forum this morning?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. Then our next item is the consent agenda. We have one item number 1, personnel matters. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve consent agenda item number 1.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Or raise your hand. There we go. Thank you. Motion passes. Next on our agenda, we have discussion items, and I will turn it back over to Chad for the amended IGA timeline for approval from Coulter Blump, February 14th, 2022.
Coulter sent that communication to board members and district council, collecting feedback on the IGA. We're supposed to get all of that commentary today, so her and I will probably be working after hours this afternoon to go through that commentary. It's the opportunity for each district to weigh in on perspectives from their district in this multi-district partnership that has been very successful, but also can be dynamic and improve. Know that not one standing district has full control over that commentary process. That commentary process will be brought back to this group. It'll be brought back to this group for 2 reasons. 1, to seek collaboration across the multiple districts, and then 2, to provide any additional clarification. So if there's a point that a district would like to ensure happens within all of their schools, both neighborhood, charter choice and magnet and BOCES, that would be an opportunity for us to demonstrate how we are currently in compliance of that, or how we would seek to be in compliance of that through this renewed agreement. So a couple things will be happening, some great commentary, some question and answer, and then an opportunity for RMSEL to showcase the great things that we do. For example, this group has been through the process of approval of fees throughout the last few years. We know that fees are challenging for families. However, one of the unique things about RMSEL's fee is it doesn't include an inclusive metric for financial aid. So no one is ever turned away from participating in the opportunities that this program has However, we're still able to plan to implement our experiences for each subsequent school year. Because right now, our adventure team and fieldwork team is planning for events next year. And so we need to be able to plan accordingly, but we also need to be an equitable and inclusive community to make sure that no one feels as if they were unable to accept a spot at RMSEL based on any financial burden or restraint. So it's going to be an opportunity for us to share questions and understanding and seek collaboration to renew the program for an additional 5-year period.
Thank you, Chad. I'll open it up for any questions or comments, but before I do, I'd also like to thank all of my colleagues on the RMSEL board for going back to their districts and making sure that everybody on their board knows what RMSEL is and how we operate. I know in our district, we're still, I think, in the process of having some 2-on-2s just to share the history of BOCES, why RMSEL, all the fabulous things that you do, so that our board colleagues understand the specific nature of RMSEL, because I think we're so unique in the BOCES model in the city. So I know we're in the process of doing that in Denver Public Schools, and I know I've spoken with a couple of you who are doing that. And if you haven't had a chance to just meet with the people in your district who are working on the IGA, it might be helpful just to tell your board colleagues that this is coming so they know what RMSEL is. So I'll open it up now for any questions or comments.
I just wanted to quickly say thank you. I know that PEBC is a bit different, particularly as we sit on this board, but thank you for reaching out to our CEO and connecting us and including us in the process. It means a great deal to us.
And thank you for your insights. Oh, sorry, Chad. Just thank you, Brianna, for your insights. Go ahead, Chad.
And I would open that to you as sitting board members. If you would like the opportunity to come out to campus to spend time here, to bring a board member along, if you'd like to set up a video conference with me, if you'd like to come out and do a in-person conference, whatever we can do as a team to help board members with understanding of the uniqueness of the success of this program and why it is valuable, and hope for the continuance of it for an additional 30 years. So just extend that to everyone. If you've got a colleague that's like, yeah, I'm still a little confused, I'd love to know a little more. I always say we're here at school every day. And so you are welcome to walk through that front door as a board member at any time and be present. And if you'd like to set up some type of scheduled conversation, we can support that as well.
Thank you, Chad.
Good morning.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It's always awkward when
no, that's okay, Michelle.
On, but I'm driving and I don't want to terrify people. I was going to thank both you and Chad, you, Carrie, for the reminder. I wanted to ask if are there any specific materials you would share in this education and spreading what RMSEL is and how this works? Our district does have 4 new board members, or 3 and 1 previous. So, there is definitely lots to learn in these first 6 months, I'd say. So any specific materials you recommend sharing while educating peers, either Chad or Carrie?
I can start with what we've done in Denver Public Schools, and then Chad, feel free to jump in. We've provided our board colleagues with a history of RMSEL, why it was formed, how it was formed. We've also shared what is a BOCES, because many districts don't understand, or many people don't understand what a BOCES is, what makes RMSEL unique, and then what is an IGA, just to be clear on what that is. And then I've offered my board colleagues the opportunity to visit RMSEL as well. I've talked with Chad and he's said open door policy, so come anytime. So I think that's been helpful. Chad, what else would you add?
Michelle, I think the most valuable series of resources we compiled at that workshop session that we forwarded along to you, and I can forward that to any board members. I think it includes quite a few things that are helpful, which are multiple stakeholder response, which I think is helpful for board members to understand the climate, culture, academic achievement conditions of a school and a program. So that includes our school district performance framework from CDE that distinguishes us as accredited with distinction. You also have our biannual parent community survey, which is the multi-page document that seeks programmatic quality around programs that are offered, satisfaction, interaction with teachers, administrator, peer interactions. It's a very robust document. I would say it is slightly dated, but we are relaunching that for March. So there'll be a fresh set of responses here soon. You have the most recent TLCC responses from 2 years ago, which is how teachers feel about working in our school and our program. And so I think all of those things paint a big picture of where we are. You also have up-to-date student achievement information, CMOS and PSAT scores that we administered last year during the pandemic. We had a high number of students participate. We did not have a high opt-out rate. So I think all of those things help. And then I would say we have had board members, district colleagues come out and participate in our open houses. And so those are now back to being in person the first Thursday of the month at 8:30 a.m. here on campus. And so all of those things I believe are useful tools. And then ask those questions. I believe over 11 years of being here, I have most of the answers. But if I don't, I know that my colleagues and Julie can support me in finding those answers for a specific board member.
I think it's also helpful to talk with your staff who's been working with Coulter Bump, just to get their perspective, and your superintendent too, to just raise the awareness and let people know what's going on. But thank you, Chad, for having all that information compiled. That's also really helpful.
Great, thank you both.
Any other questions? Oh, go ahead, Chad, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Carrie.
I was just gonna ask if there's any other questions or comments. All right, Chad, did you want to add something else before we move to the next item?
Go ahead.
All right, so our next topic for discussion is the RMSEL Biannual Community Survey from 2021 to 2022 in March.
We'll be releasing our community survey to parents. That survey was revised during the 1920 school year cycle by the BOCES. That is sent individually to one member of each household. So split households do get the survey to each household. Combined households do receive one unique code. We sent approximately 350 codes in 1920 to a school population of 387 and a half that year, because we had a partially enrolled student. And we got a response rate of 141 responses. So a very high response rate from our community, giving very accurate feedback to all the climate conditions, academic programming that we offer here at RMSEL. So we're going to release that in March, 2-week window to parents, and have those results ready for the board in April as part of our biannual process of checking in on the climate, culture, academic achievement, and success of RMSEL.
Great.
Once the board has the opportunity to go through that information will be publicly posted to the RMSEL website as it has been in the past years, with the exclusion of the open commentary. That information will only be available to school staff as well as board members because of the private nature of those comments.
Brianna.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Just a point of clarification. So in the minutes, I know that we had listed 2 dates for the virtual community feedback sessions. Just to clarify, did those happen? So it was the survey responses plus the virtual feedback sessions. Is that correct?
So we canceled the virtual sessions for the strategic plan feedback. We are going to conduct those in person now in community question and answer sessions. We're going to do the same format of morning and afternoon, but we were getting that revised guidance right at the same time. So we will open that to get some collaboration in person. We just know that these virtual environments have been very challenging. So we will have that information in April for the board. The biannual community survey is completely independent of the strategic plan survey that went out. And it's about a 14-page document that looks at satisfaction across school levels, content areas, adventure programming, special education, financial aid, and basically everything that school touches. Parents have the opportunity to weigh in on that, and that will be a separate survey to get out to the group in March to get feedback. And that will be a 100% standard survey style platform.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Anyone else? Any questions or comments? Okay, we'll move on to the COVID operational update. I know you touched on that, Chad, in your executive director report, but just opened up for any discussion or anything else you wanted to add.
That was the intent. Open to discussion. Any boards, any commentary?
Anybody have any comments? I think you did a good job of summarizing everything and answered my questions. Good. We'll move on to the RMSEL 2022-2023 salary matrix increase first reading.
So you have in your packets, and I'll go ahead and try with some technical assistance here to do a little screen share. I don't like screen share because then you can't see everybody, but I think it is valuable for this purpose. Screen. Okay. Can everybody see that document that's up now? Okay, great.
Yes.
It says that I'm screen sharing and I can see you in the corner. So the intent of this, similar to the intent of the staff recommitment bonus, is to find any and every possible way to provide additional compensation to teachers. RMSEL has operated on a lateral increase structure through this matrix, which has been the same percentage increase across the groupings, which makes it challenging for us to compete with our neighboring partner districts, specifically in bands 3 and 4. And so what we looked at was your district currently published salary indexes that are out there. And what we're recommending is something a little bit different. So if you look at the third column of the percentage increase, we hope to bring before the board for approval at our next meeting this salary schedule, which our current salary was banded for up to 2023, but we're asking the board to revisit that at this time for an additional salary increase. So it would increase by 1% in that first band, increase by 3% in the second band, 5% in the third band, and 7% in the fourth band. What that does is, if we look at most of your salary structures in that first band, we are very competitive with under $1,000 differential between RMSEL salaries and our 5 district partners. And then when you get up to the fourth band with that potential max salary differential, it is still slightly off from what our school districts are able to offer at those more advanced number of years, but it does put us within $3,000 of competing with our districts. So the idea here is to attract and retain veteran expeditionary learning teachers, provide additional salary increases for those staff members at those veteran positions, because we know once you stay within a district, oftentimes beyond 5 years, it's very challenging to transfer districts and retain years of service. So the hope of this is to provide some pretty substantial increases to our staff salaries. Julia is working closely with me to make sure that this is possible with the current budget recommendations that are forthcoming. We're budgeting for this with a budget index provided by the state that won't be approved until May, but I think we've got to make some preemptive decisions as a group in April because staff want to know what their salaries are before June. And I understand the state process delays that. But if we can budget in a way that we can make this work no matter what, I think it's very important. And then one, I think, key indicator between those bands for the board to reference is it is a 16% increase between bands, and then a 10% increase at that final band and 15% on the MA side. So I'll go ahead and close my commentary. Just wanted to bring this before the board in first reading, not asking for approval today, but invite any questions and then hopefully be able to approve this in April so that we can budget for this in May and final approval in June. But I do think if the board approves this or elects to approve this in April, that staff can begin planning financially accordingly. So pretty significant increases, and those significant increases are in those bands of the veteran teacher status to make us more competitive with our district partners. So I'll leave the screen share up and turn it over to any board member commentary.
I see Chris is leaving to help out with the students. Thank you, Chris, for being here this morning. We appreciate it. I'll open this up to any comments or questions from any of my board colleagues. Brianna.
So many questions today. First of all, thank you so much for sharing your screen. I know it is not the best because you can't see everyone, but it certainly helps orient at least me to what you're talking about. So I really appreciate that. I had a couple of questions. One, do you anticipate sustaining that, that $2,000 yearly, committing sort of incentive? So that's my first question. Do you anticipate sustaining that and or increasing that? And what decisions would go into that? Go ahead and answer that, and then I'll ask my other questions.
Sure. So we've been provided some financial flexibility in schools with the ESSER funds 1, 2, and 3 that have been released to us. The problem I find with these funds is these are what I consider to be borrowed funds, even though they're not something that we're returning. But building a budget on a temporary financial solution does not necessarily allow the school to stay sustainable long term. So we've been able to do some of this by allocating those ESSER funds to specific identified programs, which create some financial flexibility for us. And that bonus retention structure was able to be freed up based on the offset of those funds. So those funds are only available through next year. We are in round 3 of those, and we are subject to receive an additional $593,181.04. So we're going to have a lot of flexibility next year continuing that. So I do see that continuing, but this salary schedule is built based on PPR increases and the way that we structure our staffing, because in Colorado, specifically public schools nationally, these ESSER funds are going to go away. And if we're building our budget primarily on these supplemental funds, then we're going to hit a crisis point where, oh my gosh, we made all these great decisions because we want to take care of people, and that big infusion of capital is no longer available. So we're looking at those funds for next year around how we can supplement and offset positions, how we can bring in more instructional support resources, how we can fund additional one-year-only positions for interventionists supporting kids. But we're not budgeting or creating our budget structure based on these supplemental funds. But these supplemental funds have created opportunity for us to be able to offer some of these stipends, as well as make some decisions for years moving forward. So I hope that kind of connects those two. But if those funds were not available at all, this matrix would be sustainable long term.
Right. Okay, great. That is helpful. And I think that question of sustainability is always an important one, particularly for schools and for organizations, right? So I appreciate that. Second of all, I'm wondering, I can infer what some of the additional benefits are of working for RMSEL, but I'm wondering if you can take just a moment to articulate them. And the reason I'm asking is because, of course, the financial aspect of a salary is very important. And when there's certain limitations to that, I mean, that's when an organization or a school can build in additional benefits, whether that be flexibility or however you define. So when you are talking to, when you're thinking about that retention and recruiting new teachers, what do you articulate as some of the perks or the benefits of teaching at RMSEL?
I really appreciate that question. And from a place of transparency, I think there are offsetting benefits. Our teachers in our neighborhood schools, our charters, our magnets, all have really challenging positions and all have benefits with working in those specific places that are push pulls. And in the sense that, you know, it's great to get to go on these amazing adventures with students and be out in the field with them and see them develop in 3 domains of student achievement as healthy human beings, social emotional connections, and academic achievement. I want that to be a benefit of working here, but also know that that can be an exclusion of individuals sometimes working here because they have you know, multiple children in the household. They might be a single parent family. There's challenges of those things. So while things can be externally viewed as benefits here, they can also create some challenge. You know, our classroom size is 1 to 25. So that's a nice manageable classroom within the current classroom size within Colorado. So it is a benefit, but at the same time, you know, we're asking teachers to design and implement independent curricular aspects to enhance learning. In our middle school right now, we're doing this the Colorado River Basin, my impact as a citizen in the watershed. And this is an evolving curricular structure. We're connecting with experts at the University of Wyoming. We had the Attorney General's Office for the Division of Colorado Natural Resources come in. And so while those things are exciting and they get you excited as an educator, they also sometimes take a little bit more planning than maybe typically using like an AP textbook type structure. So I think there's a lot of benefits in coming here. There's a lot of autonomy. There's a lot of creativity, but it's not absent of different challenges. And so in my years of being here now, I'm really trying to remove myself from being a type of a sales pitch of all the qualities of things that are here, but being very transparent in what you can gain from teaching in this model, how this can grow you as an educator, what benefits it has, but not being exclusionary to the things that make working at this school sometimes challenging, because we are committed to 3 dimensions of student achievement in building our physical strength, social emotional connections, and well-being and academic achievement. So, you know, every morning for 30 minutes, we're out moving, we're doing fitness, and it's sometimes 20 degrees and it's hard. And that can be, you know, certainly something that a new staff member might see as beneficial, but somebody might see as an additional requirement of their profession that they're not interested in. So while I want to sell RMSEL and I want great people to be here and stay, I also want to respect my colleagues in our neighborhood and partner schools that are doing great work and the benefits of being in those places. And so I think it's about finding the right fit, not making this the right fit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really appreciate that. You just named the sort of the intricacies or the nuances of working at RMSEL. And then your approach in terms of being super transparent. And yeah, that emphasis on it being a good fit. That's helpful for me to hear. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Brianna. I had a similar question, so thank you for that. Anyone else have any questions for Chad? I'd just like to say thank you for thinking about this increase for teachers, especially in such a challenging time. I know you and I have talked before, Chad, about how hard it is for newer teachers to buy a home in Denver, and it's a value that you and I both have, that they could live near the school that they work in. And this gets them a little bit closer, not anywhere near where they need to be, but I appreciate that in thinking about what our educators need. And I like how you frame it as supporting our students, because that's true. The more we can support our teachers, that teaching and learning that happens between teachers and students is really important. And there are so many other benefits to working at RMSEL that aren't named in the salary schedule. I think also just the camaraderie amongst your teachers has been really helpful in, especially with new teachers, they feel supported. So thank you. All right, no other comments. We'll move on to CMAS and PSAT update.
Just wanna let everybody know that the intricacies of running a K-12 school, we have 5 full weeks of testing getting ready to come up post spring reflection, which is on March 14th. We are a school and program that has always advocated in support of what I like to call a good hard test. It gives us an indicator of student achievement that goes into a body of evidence. We are non-oppositional in any way to parents that may elect to opt out of participating, but we are not proponents of that because school still has to happen. The test still has to happen. I would say the most disruptive year in my 18 years of administering these standardized tests was last year. When we decided that you had to take it in every other year, but you could opt into taking it if you wanted. So schools, all of your school district partners, all of your districts still had to go ahead with the same schedule and then build a secondary schedule that was more disruptive. So just to parents, to community, we don't put emphasis on this and stress. We don't want to stress children with this, but this is a good benchmark of an indicator in a body of evidence that helps us inform decisions around intervention and support classroom instruction. We've communicated this with families. As I said, we're not in any way oppositional to parents that elect to exercise their right as a parent to opt out of the assessment. However, that window of time is still in the calendar and that test will still be administered during that time. So we value our parents as community members in making that decision and choice. Just want board members to know that starting on March 23rd, we begin testing through the final week of April. We give every test from 3rd through 11th grade here at RMSEL. And we are thankful to have the additional building space this year, so we are not testing in closets as we have had to do in past years. So benefit of the BEST grant.
Any questions from anybody for chat around the CMAS and PSAT update? Go ahead, Becky.
I know it sounds like a long time. I remember it seemed like CMAS, but per pupil per hour, how much is an individual student involved in actual testing? Because I know you're going through your whole grades to be testing, but as far as just an individual student, how much of a day or an hour does it take for a child to go through or a student to go through the CMAS? And what is PSAT pre? Is that regular SAT?
So the SAT is given in 3 cycles now, a 9th grade PSAT, a 10th grade PSAT, and the 11th grade official SAT. And then we also offer here at RMSEL in the fall optional PSAT testing for 9, 10, and 11s through a secondary provider. What you do is you opt in and then they give you test results and then they market you to come take their test prep. But it is nice for kids to get an additional touch for that if they would like it. So that's the PSAT cycle. The state has moved to only testing PSAT in high school grades. So they're not doing that and CMAS in high school, which is nice. And I would say our high school students' response to that has been thank you. Gives us additional touch points to something that is still a real metric of transition to post-secondary options. A typical student is testing for 3 days. And so, for example, 6th grade CMAS, which is 2 disciplines of English language arts and mathematics, will test for March 23rd, 24th, and 25th. They do a test in the morning, then they have their crew, lunch, and specials class, and then a test in the afternoon. So it does replace their academic content on those days.
Right.
They're not just sitting there testing for the full day. So on average, I would say it takes 3 days. In 8th grade, it does take 5 days because 8th grade is a year with science. So you have 3 days for English, language arts, and mathematics, and then 2 days to administer the 8th grade science exam. But most tests are given over 3 days. 5th and 8th grade are the anomaly to that, where it's given over 5 days.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments about testing? All right, thank you, Chad, for that update. I don't see any action items, so we'll move right into the report items, which is the budget report, and I will turn it over to the fabulous Julie Stelzer, who always knows all of this. Thank you.
Every month you should receive, Anne and Nichelle, a full package of our financial statements, the balance sheet as compared to last year, the profit and loss statement as compared to budget, and as compared to last year. You receive those every month. Past boards have liked me to prepare a management summary, which kind of goes through and looks at notable revenue streams that we have coming in, and then any expenses which are out of whack or in variance. We receive all of our funding for the most part as PPR funding. We receive that from DPS on a monthly basis after we get the first big chunk of it in July. So they will give us funding for 3 months on July 1, so July, August, September, and then starting in October, we get it monthly. Funding came in on January 21st, and that $305,000 should be what we receive for the rest of the year. It then talks about what we originally budgeted PPR at, and the amounts, the number of FTE that we had, and then it goes through the current PPR and current number of students as of October 1, 2021. There is each year in the June budget, we're looking ahead to what we need to finance our bond. So we're paying principal and interest on our bond, as well as some other fees that are associated with that. So we request the board to have a budget carryover resolution, and that's what the $450,000 is when you go through that list. And Ann, I'll get your email and stuff from you, and I'll send you this packet. And if any of you want to sit down and go through our budget and look at it, I know some board members have done that. I'm more than willing to do that one-on-one, or 2 of you. If I get 3 board members, it's a meeting, so just keep that in mind. We receive about $200,000 every year for being at BOCES. We use those funds to fund the personnel for MTSS and the RTI. We receive a little bit of funding for the READ Act, about $3,500. And then the next chunk of revenue actually is for our landmark trips. And I'm kind of going to try and explain this. We charge fees every year that fund our field work, that fund instructional support supplies, technology, and transportation. In that field work component, if you have let's say kindergarten grade, and those teachers get their field work money, any monies left over will roll to the year of their landmark trip, which is the 5th grade. That 5th grade trip pre-COVID was a sailing expedition around Catalina Island. So all those funds from K through 4 or 5 will go into that trip. We roll those monies so that we don't have to charge parents more funds that year. We usually have to charge only airfare, and the rest of it is covered. So that's what those funds are. Each year when we budget, we take a 10% chunk off the top of that and set it aside for their landmark trip as well. So that's what that whole section on the financial statements is money for the future landmark trips. In the event that we have something unknown, we have a bus breakdown, or we have to transport children from somewhere to somewhere, whatever it is, that pot of money is kind of our rainy day fund, is what that's supposed to take care of, as well as funding those trips. If you keep on down, we do not budget classroom revenue, but we receive classroom revenue. And usually that's in the form of funding from Colorado Gives Day. We have teachers who are very on top of it, for lack of a better word, and are really pushing their parents for, say, science equipment or athletic equipment or adventure equipment. So a lot of our teachers get funding that way. If you keep going through the management summary, it then goes into any expenses that are notable changes from the financial statements. So, or from the budget, excuse me. The first thing noted on there is our lease to DPS. We pay a lease to them, a lease payment May 1st and November. So there's always a timing difference on the financial statements. So that item stays on there. This next little chunk of line items is specifically for the bond and our payment of the bond. So you can see those detailed there. It's an annual fee, bond interest payment, a P&I payment. We have to pay money to our trustee. We have to pay money to SECFA for our biannual fee. And then we have Moody's we pay yearly as well, $5,500. And in order to get our bond and all of our financials up, there's a go-between, if you will. It's a Digital Assurance Corporation, and we pay them to disseminate to Emma, which is the stockholders, what they can look at. The rest of the budget summary is pretty self-explanatory. We have 3 accounts currently that are over, but those are all accounts that are offset by some revenue above. So if you have questions on those specific ones, so Adventure supply expense is over, but it's offset against its revenue account 46201. Same thing for visual arts and high school supplies. The probably one notable thing on here that's remaining is financial aid. We still have about $41,000 of financial aid available. We did have a family, I want to say in January, that we actually went beyond the deadline and awarded them financial aid because they've been having trouble with their finances. And it isn't something that was documented with their tax return. They still have all the dependents on their tax return, plus 5 more family members who are living with them. So we granted financial aid for that. And then it goes straight into the financial statements, if anyone has a question on those.
Thank you so much for showing compassion to that family. I can't imagine inheriting 5 extra family members in the middle of a pandemic. So thank you for your compassion and reaching out and making that happen. It's another thing that makes RMSEL special. Anybody have any questions or comments for Julie? And while I'm providing some think time, I would really encourage our newer board members to take some time to meet with Julie if you have that in your day. It really helps for those of us who have met with her before, just to understand RMSEL. It's very different from our home districts. So I would encourage you to take her up on that and maybe do a tour of RMSEL while you're at it. All right. Thank you, Julie, as always. We appreciate all of the details. So the next item on our agenda is our executive session. And so I will read us in for executive session, and then we will come back and just mention the future agenda items, and then we will adjourn. And Julie, since Chris isn't here, I'm going to ask you to call roll for our executive session. So just to give you a heads up that after I read us in, I'll ask you.
Do you want me to stay here or you want me to leave?
If you could stay to do the roll call while I ask for who agrees to go into executive session, that would be helpful. So it is now time for us to move into executive session for the purpose of discussions regarding personnel matters as authorized by CRS 24-6-4024F. May I have a motion to move into executive session?
Motion to move into executive session.
May I have a second?
I think Angela second,
I
but
think Angela's second.
Okay, thank you. Julie, please call roll.
Ann Eden,
Aye.
Carrie Olson,
Aye.
Angela Christensen,
Aye.
Becky Myers,
Aye.
and Brianna Mestis.
Aye.
And we will note that Nichelle Ortiz had to jump off, so she will not be a part of this. Thank you.
Okay.
It's now time for us to move into our executive session Zoom room. Board members, you have received a separate link for this purpose. This concludes the public portion of our meeting. Thank you, everyone who has been joining us from your time at home.
All right, I'll go ahead and close this, and I'll have to open the next link, and I'll meet you all there.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. See you over there.